The transport shuttle shook as it docked with the research station. Hana Kim gripped her seat and watched through the window as the massive structure came into view. Station Frontier 9 floated in the darkness of space, orbiting a purple planet far from Earth. This would be her home for the next year. Hana was 28 years old and not very tall. She stood only 160 centimeters, which made her short even for a human. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard gray uniform of the Xenobiology Corps. In her bag, she carried everything she owned, some clothes, a few books, and pictures of her family back on Earth. The station commander met her at the airlock. His name was Day Park, an older human man with tired eyes. "Welcome to Frontier 9, Dr. Kim," he said, shaking her hand. "I hope you're ready for this assignment. It's not like anything you've done before." "I've read all the files," Hana said. "I'm ready." Day smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Reading files is one thing. Meeting them is different. "Come on, I'll show you." They walked through the station's white corridors. Other humans passed them, along with a few aliens from different species. Hana recognized a Talarian, its blue skin shimmering under the lights. A cortex floated by, its gas-filled body contained in a clear sphere. The galaxy was full of many kinds of life, but Hana wasn't here for any of those species. They stopped at a large door marked Cultural Exchange Wing. Day turned to her. "The Dravik are impressive. Don't be scared when you first see them. They look dangerous, but the ones here are just cubs. Young ones." "I understand," Hana said. "Do you?" Day asked. "They're 3 meters tall, even the young ones. They have claws that can tear through metal. Their bite force can crush stone. And you're going to be their liaison, their teacher, their guardian while they're here." Hana met his gaze. "I know what I signed up for." Day nodded and opened the door. The room beyond was enormous, built to accommodate beings much larger than humans. The ceiling stretched high above, and the furniture was massive. 3 figures stood in the center of the room, and Hana's breath caught for just a moment. The Dravik cubs were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They stood on 2 legs like humans, but their bodies were covered in thick fur that seemed to shimmer with tiny crystals. Their faces were like bears from Earth, but more intelligent, more aware. Their eyes glowed with a soft amber light. Each one had huge paws with claws that gleamed like black knives. The largest one stepped forward. "Commander Park," it rumbled in a deep voice, "is this our new liaison?" "Yes," Dai said. "This is Dr. Hana Kim. She'll be working with you for the duration of your stay." The 3 Dravik stared down at Hana. She looked so small next to them. The largest one tilted his head. "She is very small," he said. "Smaller than the other humans we've met." "I am Hana," she said clearly, not showing any fear. "What are your names?" The largest one touched his chest with one massive paw. "I am Thrak, son of the war leader Grath. This is Venna, daughter of the chief healer Mora, and this is Krell, son of the master builder Dern." Venna, the female cub, leaned down to look at Hana more closely. "You are our teacher?" she asked. Her voice was softer than Thrak's, but still powerful. "How can one so tiny teach us anything?" Hana smiled. "Size isn't everything. Would you like me to show you?" Krell huffed, and it might have been a laugh. "This should be interesting." Day left them alone, and Hana spent the next hour talking with the 3 cubs. They were curious, but also dismissive. They had been raised on a world where strength and size mattered most. Their people were warriors and builders, proud of their physical power. To them, Hana looked like a child's toy. "On your world," Thrak said, "how do humans survive? You have no claws, no thick fur, no natural weapons." "We use tools," Hana said, "and our minds. We adapt." "But what if you have no tools?" Venna asked. "What if you must run from a predator?" Hana stood up. Follow me to the gym. I'll show you something. The station's gymnasium had equipment for many different species. Hana led the 3 cubs to the human section, where a running track circled the room. There was also a treadmill designed for endurance testing. Dravik are very strong, Hana said. I've read that you can lift massive weights. You can run fast for short distances. But how long can you run? Throck puffed out his chest. Long enough to catch any prey. Let's test that, Hana said. She stepped onto the treadmill and set it to a steady pace. Not fast, just a comfortable jog. Then she started running. The cubs watched with mild interest at first. After 5 minutes, Venna said, This is your demonstration? Just running? Hana didn't answer. She just kept running. Her breathing stayed steady and even. After 10 minutes, Krell shifted his weight. How long will she do this? After 20 minutes, the cubs were getting restless. Throck stepped onto another treadmill and tried to match Hana's pace. He was fast at first, much faster than her, but after only 10 minutes he was breathing hard. After 15 minutes he had to stop, panting heavily. Hana kept running. 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. Venna's eyes grew wide. Is she going to stop? Finally, after an hour and a half, Hana slowed the treadmill and stepped off. She was sweating and breathing hard, but she smiled at the 3 stunned cubs. Humans evolved to hunt by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're not the fastest or strongest, but we can keep going when others have to stop. We don't give up. Throck stared at her with new respect in his amber eyes. I have never seen anything like that. There's a lot you haven't seen, Hana said. I'm looking forward to teaching you. That night, Hana returned to her small quarters and fell into bed, exhausted. She had made an impression on the cubs, but she knew that earning their real respect would take time. They still saw her as small and weak, despite her demonstration. She had no idea how soon she would have to prove herself in a much more dangerous way. At 0300 hours, the station's alarm began to scream. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Hana jumped out of bed and grabbed her emergency kit. The intercom crackled to life. Hull breach in Section 7. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. We have hostile forces on board. Hana's heart raced as she ran into the corridor. Other humans were emerging from their rooms, confused and frightened. Someone grabbed her arm. Dr. Kim! It was a young technician named Rena. The breach is near the Cultural Exchange Wing. The Dravik cubs are trapped. Hana didn't hesitate. She started running toward the wing, even as others ran in the opposite direction. The station shook with explosions. Smoke filled the air. She could hear weapons fire in the distance. When she reached the Cultural Exchange Wing, the main entrance was sealed with emergency doors. She found a side passage and crawled through the maintenance shaft. Her small size was an advantage here. She dropped into the observation deck and found the 3 cubs huddled together. They looked terrified. Their earlier confidence gone. These were not warriors yet. They were still children, far from home, in danger they didn't understand. Throck saw her first. Hana! The station is under attack. We tried to reach Commander Park, but all the communications are down. The doors are sealed. We're trapped. Hana quickly assessed the situation. The observation deck had only 2 entrances. One was sealed by the emergency doors. The other led to a corridor that connected to Section 7, where the breach had occurred. Heavy footsteps echoed from that direction. Get behind me, Hana whispered. The 3 cubs stared at her. Venna's voice shook. But you're so tiny. How can you protect us? Hana checked her emergency kit. Inside was a plasma cutter for repairs, a small kinetic pistol with 2 magazines, a medical kit, and some basic tools. Not much, but it would have to be enough. She looked up at the 3 massive cubs and felt a strange calm settle over her. You're about to learn something else about humans, she said quietly. We protect our pack, no matter what. The footsteps grew louder. Hana moved quickly, her hands steady despite the fear trying to creep into her mind. She pulled the plasma cutter from her emergency kit and turned to the three cubs. "Move to the far corner," she said, "behind that console. Stay low and stay quiet." "What are you going to do?" Krell asked. His voice had lost its earlier mockery. Now he just sounded young and scared. "I'm going to slow them down," Hana said. She didn't have time to explain more. The footsteps were almost at the door now. The cubs moved to where she indicated, their massive bodies surprisingly quiet despite their size. Hana worked fast with the plasma cutter. She knew the station's layout well from her orientation training. The floor panels in this section were thin, designed to be lightweight. Beneath them was a crawl space filled with cables and ventilation ducts. She cut a careful pattern in the floor near the entrance, weakening it just enough that it would hold her weight, but nothing heavier. Then she took some lubricant from her kit and spread it on the floor in front of the weakened section. It was a simple trap, but simple often worked best. Hana positioned herself behind a support pillar near the door. She pulled out the kinetic pistol and checked it. The weapon was small, designed for human hands. It fired metal projectiles using magnetic acceleration. Not powerful enough to punch through heavy armor, but effective against lighter targets. The door exploded inward with a shower of sparks. 3 figures rushed into the room, and Hana's blood ran cold. They were raiders. She recognized their type from the security briefings. The Klaxar Syndicate, a criminal organization that operated in the frontier regions. They wore mismatched armor and carried various weapons. 2 were humanoid in shape, but clearly not human. Their skin had a gray reptilian texture. The third was larger, with 4 arms and glowing red eyes. "Scan for the cubs," one of them barked into a communicator. "Command wants them alive. The genetic samples from Dravik youth will sell for millions." So this was why they had attacked the station. The Dravik cubs were valuable. Their DNA, their biology, all of it could be sold to the highest bidder. Research labs, private collectors, or worse, would pay fortunes for living Dravik specimens. The first raider stepped onto the slick floor. His feet went out from under him, and he crashed down onto the weakened section. The floor gave way with a loud crack, and he dropped into the crawl space below with a scream. Cables wrapped around him, and sparks flew as he struggled. The second raider was more careful. He saw what happened to his companion and moved slowly, testing each step. But that caution made him an easy target. Hana stepped out from behind the pillar and fired 3 quick shots. The first hit the raider's weapon, knocking it from his hand. The second and third hit his leg joints, where the armor was weakest. He went down with a shout of pain. The 4-armed raider spun toward her, raising 2 plasma rifles. "You!" he roared. "You're just a human! Stand aside or die!" Hana dove behind the console as plasma bolts scorched the air where she had been standing. The heat was intense. She could smell burning metal and plastic. Behind her, she heard Venna whimper softly. "Stay down," Hana whispered to the cubs. Her mind raced, calculating angles and possibilities. She had maybe 10 shots left in her pistol. The raider had 2 rifles with much more firepower. In a direct fight, she would lose in seconds. But humans didn't always fight directly. She pulled a maintenance drone from the emergency kit. It was a small flying device used for repairs in hard-to-reach places. She activated it and sent it flying across the room at maximum speed. The 4-armed raider tracked the movement automatically, firing at the drone. While he was distracted, Hana rolled to a new position and fired at the ventilation panel above him. Her shots tore through the thin metal, and the heavy panel came crashing down on top of the raider. It wasn't enough to kill him, but it knocked him off balance. One of his rifles skittered across the floor. Hana was already moving, running toward the fallen weapon. Pain exploded in her shoulder as a plasma bolt grazed her. The station's emergency vest she wore absorbed most of the heat, but it still felt like being hit with a hammer. She ignored the pain. Humans had evolved to push through injury, to keep fighting even when hurt. Adrenaline flooded her system, dulling the pain and sharpening her focus. She grabbed the fallen plasma rifle and aimed it at the raider who was struggling to get out from under the ventilation panel. "Drop your weapon," Hana said. Her voice was steady. The raider stared at her, at this tiny human who had just taken down 3 of his team. Slowly, he let go of his remaining rifle. "Krell," Hana called out. "There's a cable bundle near you. Can you pull it free?" The young Dravik moved quickly, using his impressive strength to tear free a thick bundle of cables. Hana directed him to bind the raider's hands and feet. The cubs worked together, their fear turning into action now that they had something to do. But Hana knew this wasn't over. The explosion that breached the station had been too precise, too planned. This was a coordinated attack. There would be more raiders. "How many of you came?" she asked the 4-armed raider. He just glared at her. Hana checked the fallen raiders' equipment and found their communicator. She listened to the chatter. Her blood ran cold. "Team 2, status? Team 2 is en route to Cultural Exchange Wing, ETA 3 minutes. Team 3 is securing escape route, 6 hostiles neutralized. Command acknowledges. Retrieve the cubs and fall back. Station security is mobilizing. 3 minutes. Another team of raiders would be here in 3 minutes. Hana looked around the observation deck. The main door was still sealed by emergency protocols. The entrance they had come through was the only way in or out, and she had no way to block it properly. She turned to the 3 cubs. "Can you fit through the ventilation shaft?" Throck looked at the shaft opening. "Maybe." "It will be tight." "You need to go," Hana said. "Follow the ventilation system to Section 4. There's a security station there. You'll be safe." "What about you?" Venna asked. "I'll slow them down. Buy you time to get away." "No," Throck said firmly. The young Dravik stood up to his full height. "We don't leave pack members behind." Hana blinked. "I'm not your pack. I'm just your liaison." Krell shook his head. "You protected us. You fought for us when you didn't have to. On our world, that makes you pack." Venna added, "And the Dravik never abandoned their pack." Hana felt something warm in her chest. She had spent so long studying alien species, learning about them as subjects. But now, facing danger together, the differences between human and Dravik seemed less important than what they shared. "All right," she said. "Then we fight together, but we need a plan." She gathered the cubs close and spoke quickly. "The raiders want you alive, which means they'll try not to hurt you. We can use that. Throck, you're the biggest. You'll be our shield. Venna, you're fast. You'll be our striker. Krell, you're strong. You'll control the space, and I'll coordinate and strike from range." "What does that mean?" Krell asked. "It means we work as a team, like a pack." Hana showed them the layout of the room. She pointed out defensive positions, places where their size would be an advantage in the confined space. She explained how to funnel the enemy into kill zones, how to use cover effectively. The cubs listened intently. They had been trained in combat on their homeworld, but it was mostly ceremonial dueling, one-on-one fights based on honor. This was something different. This was tactics, strategy, using every advantage no matter how small. "One more thing," Hana said. "The raiders think I'm just a human. Small. Weak. They don't know what humans can really do, so we're going to show them." She handed Venna the plasma rifle she had captured. "Only fire if you have a clear shot and I give the signal. Otherwise, use your claws." To Throck, she gave a piece of metal plating torn from the wall. "This is your shield. Stay in front of us." To Krell, she pointed at the loose floor panels. "Make the ground unstable. Make them fight on your terms." The communicator crackled. "Team 2 approaching Cultural Exchange Wing. Breaching in 30 seconds. Hana took a deep breath. She thought about Earth, about her family, about all the training that had brought her to this moment. She thought about humanity's long history of standing against impossible odds. Her ancestors had survived ice ages, predators, diseases, wars. They had crossed oceans in wooden boats and reached for the stars. That determination, that refusal to give up, flowed in her blood. "Remember," she said to the cubs, "we protect each other, no matter what." The door exploded inward for the second time. 5 raiders rushed in, weapons ready. They expected to find 3 frightened cubs and maybe 1 dead human. Instead, they found something they weren't prepared for. They found a pack. The first raider through the door was massive, nearly as tall as the Dravik cubs. He wore heavy combat armor and carried a stun net launcher. Behind him came 4 more raiders in lighter gear, armed with various weapons. They spread out quickly, professional and coordinated. "Secure the cubs!" the leader shouted. "Watch for the human! She's armed!" But they made their first mistake. They were looking for a scared, hiding human. They weren't looking for one who had already planned every move. Hana had positioned herself on a high observation platform that the raiders wouldn't immediately see. She fired 3 shots at the ceiling directly above the raiders. The bullets punched through a coolant pipe, and freezing liquid sprayed down on the attackers. It wasn't dangerous, but it was cold enough to fog their helmet visors and make the floor slippery. "Now!" Hana shouted. Krell stomped on the floor panel Hana had pre-cut. The weakened section collapsed, and 2 raiders fell through into the crawl space below. They weren't hurt badly, but they were out of the fight for crucial seconds. The leader fired his stun net at where he thought the cubs were hiding, but Throck wasn't hiding anymore. The young Dravik charged forward with the metal plating held in front of him like a shield. The net wrapped around the shield instead of Throck. The cub kept moving, using his mass and momentum to slam into the raider leader. The impact sent the raider flying backward. He crashed into a console, and sparks flew. His armor had protected him from serious injury, but he was dazed. Vena moved like Hana had taught her. She stayed low, using the smoke and confusion for cover. A raider spotted her and raised his weapon, but he hesitated. His orders were to capture the cubs alive. That single second of hesitation cost him. Vena's claws, each one longer than a human hand, swept across the raider's weapon. The gun fell apart in pieces. Then she struck his armor joints with precise hits. She wasn't trying to kill, but she made sure he couldn't fight. The raider collapsed, his armor's servos damaged. The remaining raider in the room was the most dangerous. She was a sniper, calm and professional. She had taken cover immediately and was tracking targets with a long rifle. She aimed at Hana, knowing the human was coordinating the defense. Hana saw the laser sight sweep across her position. She dropped flat just as the shot cracked past her head. The bullet hit the wall behind her, leaving a smoking hole. The sniper was good, too good. Hana wouldn't survive another shot, but the sniper made her own mistake. She forgot about Krell. The young Dravik had circled around during the chaos. His people were builders, and he understood structures and leverage. He grabbed a support beam that Hana had pre-loosened with the plasma cutter. With his impressive strength, he twisted it. The beam groaned and shifted. Part of the ceiling panels came loose, raining debris down on the sniper's position. She had to move or be buried. When she rolled out of cover, Hana was ready. 3 quick shots, all aimed at the sniper's weapon. The rifle sparked and died, its electronics fried. The sniper reached for a sidearm, but Throck was already there. His massive paw closed around her arm, gently but firmly. The sniper couldn't break free from his grip. 5 raiders down in less than a minute. But Hana knew they weren't done yet. She heard voices in the corridor outside. More raiders were coming. She checked her pistol. Only 3 bullets left. She looked at the cubs. Vena had a cut on her shoulder where a piece of debris had hit her. Krell was breathing hard from exertion. Throck's makeshift shield was bent and nearly useless. "We can't hold this position," Hana said. "We need to move." "Where?" Throck asked. "The main exits are sealed." Hana thought quickly. The station's layout flashed through her mind. The emergency escape pods. Section 5, 2 corridors over. If we can reach them, we can evacuate to a safe distance and call for help. The corridors will be full of raiders, Venna pointed out. Then we fight our way through, Hana said simply. Stay together. Watch each other's backs. Move fast and don't stop for anything. She grabbed weapons and equipment from the fallen raiders. A fresh pistol with full ammunition, an energy shield generator, small enough for her to carry but large enough to provide some protection. A handful of smoke grenades. Not much, but better than what they had. The cubs armed themselves too. Venna kept the plasma rifle. Throck picked up a heavy metal beam to use as a club. Krell took the stun net launcher and extra nets. They might not be warriors yet, but they were learning fast. Hana led them to the door. She peeked into the corridor. 6 raiders were advancing, moving cautiously. They had learned from the fate of their teammates. Smoke grenades first, Hana whispered. Then we move fast. Throck in front, Venna and Krell on the sides. I'll cover the rear. Don't get separated. She pulled the pins on 2 smoke grenades and tossed them into the corridor. Thick gray smoke billowed out, filling the narrow space. The raiders shouted in confusion. Now! Hana commanded. They burst into the corridor. Throck led the way, using his size to push through. A raider appeared through the smoke, and Throck swung his metal beam. The raider dodged, but Venna was right behind Throck. Her claws flashed, and the raider's weapon fell in pieces. More raiders emerged from side passages. Hana fired carefully, each shot counting. She aimed for weapons, not bodies. Disarm, disable, move on. Don't waste time. Keep moving. A raider grabbed Krell from behind, trying to pull him down. The young Dravik roared, the sound echoing in the metal corridor. He twisted with surprising speed and broke the grip. Then he fired the stun net. It wrapped around the raider, electricity crackling through the mesh. The raider collapsed, stunned, but alive. They fought their way down the corridor. Hana's training took over completely. Years of study, of preparation, of endless practice. She moved like water, flowing around obstacles, always where she needed to be. When Venna was about to be flanked, Hana was there with covering fire. When Throck stumbled over debris, Hana steadied him with a hand on his arm. The cubs fought with growing confidence. They were starting to understand. Size and strength mattered, but so did timing. So did coordination. So did trust. A raider fired a plasma bolt that missed Hana by centimeters. She felt the heat singe her hair. The emergency vest she wore was already burned in 3 places. She had taken hits to her ribs, her shoulder, her leg. Each impact felt like being kicked by a horse, but she couldn't stop. Stopping meant death, for her and for the cubs. Humans had evolved to hunt animals by running them to exhaustion, to survive injuries that would kill other species, to keep going when their bodies screamed to stop. Pain was just information. It told you that you were hurt, but it didn't tell you to quit. They rounded a corner and found their path blocked by 3 raiders in heavy armor. These ones carried riot shields and shock batons. They formed a wall across the corridor. "End of the line," the lead raider said. "The cubs can surrender, or we can stun them and drag them out. Your choice." Hana assessed the situation in an instant. The riot shields were designed to stop bullets and energy weapons. A frontal assault would fail. But the station's gravity generators ran through this section. She had seen them during her orientation tour. "Krell," she said quietly. "The panel on the right wall. Can you tear it off?" Krell understood immediately. His people built things, which meant they knew how to unbuild them too. He ripped the panel free, exposing the gravity generator controls. With one powerful strike, he smashed the controls. The gravity in that section of corridor flickered and died. Everyone started floating. But Hana and the cubs had been ready for it. The raiders weren't. In zero gravity, the riot shields became useless. The raiders flailed, trying to orient themselves. Hana pushed off the wall, flying through the air like a missile. She kicked the lead raider's shield, sending him spinning. Venna fired the plasma rifle, the recoil pushing her backward but the shot hitting home. Throck used his beam like a battering ram, striking raiders as he sailed past. They flew through the gap in the raider formation and out the other side. Hana grabbed a handhold and pulled them around the next corner. Behind them, the raiders were still struggling with the zero gravity. "Keep moving!" Hana gasped. She was exhausted now, running on pure adrenaline. They had fought through 3 groups of raiders. How many more were there? The corridor to Section 5 was just ahead. Hana could see the door marked Emergency Escape Pods. They were going to make it. They were going to... An explosion rocked the corridor. The wall burst inward and a massive figure stepped through the smoke. It was a combat mech, a military-grade walker twice as tall as even the Dravik cubs. Its armor was thick enough to stop anything they had. Its weapons could level a building. The raiders had brought their ultimate weapon. The mech's pilot spoke through external speakers. "Surrender the Dravik cubs immediately. This is your final warning." Hana looked at the cubs. Throck, Venna, and Krell stared back at her. They were exhausted, injured, scared. But they weren't giving up. Their amber eyes showed determination. They had learned that lesson from her. Humans don't give up. She stepped forward, putting herself between the mech and the cubs. "No," she said simply. The mech pilot laughed. "You're brave, human, but bravery won't stop me. Step aside or be crushed." Hana's mind raced. The mech was too powerful to fight directly, but it was also big, heavy, and in a space station with limited structural integrity. She looked at the walls, the floor, the ceiling. She thought about everything she knew about engineering, about physics, about how space stations were built, and she formed a desperate plan. "When I give the signal," she whispered to the cubs, "run for the escape pods. Don't look back." "What about you?" Venna whispered. Hana smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. "I'll be right behind you. Trust me." The mech started forward, each step shaking the floor. Hana raised her pistol and fired. Not at the mech, but at the ceiling above it. Her bullets hit the support beams that held up a massive water tank used for the station's cooling system. The mech pilot realized too late what she was doing. "No! Stop!" But Hana's last 3 bullets had already found their marks. The supports broke. Thousands of gallons of water crashed down on the mech, along with pieces of the ceiling. The mech didn't fall, but it was pinned, struggling against the weight. "Run!" Hana shouted. They ran. They sprinted down the corridor, the sound of the struggling mech fading behind them. Hana's legs felt like lead, and every breath burned in her lungs. The adrenaline that had kept her going was starting to fade, and the pain from her injuries was becoming harder to ignore. But the door to Section 5 was right there. Throck reached it first and hit the control panel. The door slid open, revealing the escape pod bay. 6 pods lined the walls, each one designed to hold up to 4 people and automatically pilot to the nearest safe location. "Get in!" Hana commanded, heading for the nearest pod. But as Venna moved to follow, a shot rang out. The control panel exploded in sparks. "Not so fast!" a voice called from behind them. Hana turned to see the mech pilot climbing through the debris. Her armor was damaged and dripping with water, but she was armed with a pistol and looked furious. Behind her, more raiders appeared, at least a dozen of them. They had regrouped and were making one final push. "You've caused us a lot of trouble, human," the pilot said. "No more games. Stand aside or die." Hana's pistol was empty. The energy shield generator had been damaged in the last fight. She had nothing left except a smoke grenade and her emergency tools. 13 armed raiders against 1 exhausted human and 3 young Dravik. The odds were impossible. But Hana had learned something during her years studying aliens. She had learned that every species had its own strengths. Dravik were strong and tough. Talarians were intelligent and strategic. Cortex could analyze problems in multiple dimensions at once. And humans. Humans had something special, too. Humans were pack animals who never abandoned their own. Humans could coordinate in ways most species couldn't. And humans, when pushed to their absolute limit, could find strength they didn't know they had. "Venna," Hana said quietly, "can you hit that pipe above them? The red one?" Venna looked where Hana was pointing. It was a fuel line for the escape pod engines. If ruptured, it would spray highly flammable liquid. She nodded and raised the plasma rifle, her hands steady despite her fear. "Throck, when I throw this smoke grenade, I need you to throw me. As hard as you can toward that pod." "Throw you?" Throck looked confused. "But you'll trust me," Hana said. "Krell, you get Venna into a pod as soon as she takes the shot. Don't wait for us. Launch if you have to." "We won't leave you," Krell protested. "You won't have to," Hana said. She pulled the pin on the smoke grenade. "On 3, 1, 2, 3. She threw the smoke grenade at the raider's feet. Gray smoke exploded outward, filling the corridor. At the same moment, Venna fired. Her shot was perfect, striking the red pipe. Fuel sprayed out in a wide arc. "Now!" Hana shouted. Throck grabbed Hana around the waist with one massive paw and threw her toward the far escape pod. It was a short distance, but Hana flew through the air like a missile. She crashed into the pod's doorway and scrambled inside. The raiders fired blindly into the smoke, their shots going wild. One of their energy weapons hit the fuel spray. The corridor exploded into flames. Hana didn't wait. She slapped the emergency seal on her pod and hit the launch button. Through the pod's small window, she saw Venna and Krell diving into another pod. Throck was right behind them, his pod sealed just as flames washed over it. The escape pods launched automatically, explosive bolts blasting them free from the station. Hana was pressed back into her seat by acceleration. Through the window, she saw Frontier 9 falling away behind them. Flames licked from the breached sections. Emergency lights flashed. It looked bad. But then she saw something that made her heart leap. A massive Dravik warship was approaching the station. It was 10 times larger than Frontier 9, bristling with weapons, and beside it came human cruisers, their white hulls marked with the Xenobiology Corps insignia. Help had arrived. The escape pod's radio crackled to life. "This is Commander Park aboard the rescue vessel. All escape pods, respond with your status." "This is Dr. Kim," Hana gasped into the communicator. 3 Dravik cubs are with me in separate pods. We're all alive." There was a pause, and then Day Park's voice came back, filled with relief. "Thank goodness. We tracked your pod signatures. Recovery ships are on the way. The raiders are trapped on the station. The Dravik warship is demanding their surrender." Hana let out a long breath and slumped back in her seat. It was over. They had made it. The recovery ships picked up all 4 escape pods within 20 minutes. Hana's pod was brought aboard a human medical frigate. When the door opened, she nearly fell out, her legs finally giving way. Medics caught her and helped her to a stretcher. "Easy, Dr. Kim," one of them said. "You're safe now. Let us take care of you." "The cubs," Hana insisted. "Are they okay?" "They're fine. Shaken up but unhurt. They're being checked by Dravik medical officers on the warship." Hana finally allowed herself to relax. The medics cut away her burned emergency vest and started treating her injuries. She had burns on her shoulder and side, bruised ribs, a sprained wrist, multiple cuts and scrapes, but nothing permanent, nothing that wouldn't heal. As they worked on her, she heard a commotion outside the medical bay, deep voices rumbling in the corridor. Then the door burst open, and 3 massive figures rushed in. Throck, Venna, and Krell pushed past the startled medics and surrounded Hana's stretcher. They looked worried, their amber eyes wide with concern. "Is she okay?" Venna asked the medics. "Will she survive?" "She'll be fine," the medic assured them. "Just some burns and bruises. Nothing serious." Throck let out a breath that sounded like a growl of relief. "I thought, when I threw you, I was afraid I had hurt you." Hana smiled up at the huge cub. You saved my life. All of you did. You saved ours first, Krell said quietly. Multiple times. We would have died without you. A new voice spoke from the doorway. It was deep and powerful, making the walls vibrate. So this is the human who protected my children. Everyone turned to see a massive Dravic warrior enter the room. He was even larger than the cubs, standing nearly 4 meters tall. His crystalline fur was marked with scars from many battles. He wore armor decorated with symbols of rank and honor. This was clearly someone very important. Throck immediately stood at attention. Father! I mean, War Leader Grath, sir. The war leader looked at his son, then at Venna and Krell. I have heard the full report from Commander Park. You were attacked by raiders, outnumbered, outgunned, in a sealed section with no escape. His voice was stern. And you survived because you followed the instructions of your human liaison. The cubs looked nervous, like they weren't sure if they were in trouble. But then the war leader's expression softened. He turned to Hana. Dr. Kim, he said formally, I am Grath, war leader of the Northern clans. I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You protected my son and his packmates. You risked your life for them when you could have saved yourself. Hana tried to sit up, but the medics pushed her back down. I was just doing my job, sir. No, Grath said firmly. You did far more than your job required. You fought like Dravic. You showed courage, intelligence, and loyalty. These are the qualities we value most. He paused, then continued. There is a tradition among my people. When someone saves a Dravic life at great personal risk, they are honored with a title and granted a place in our clan. We call them Pack Guardians. Hana blinked in surprise. I don't know what to say. Say you accept, Venna urged. Please, you're part of our pack now. Throck nodded eagerly. You taught us so much. Not just how to fight, but how to think, how to work together, how to never give up. Krell added, You're our guardian, our teacher, our pack sister. Hana felt tears prick her eyes. She had spent years studying aliens, trying to understand them. But she had never imagined becoming part of their family. I accept. I would be honored. The war leader stepped forward and placed one massive paw gently on Hana's shoulder, careful not to hurt her injuries. Then, from this moment, you are Hana Kim, pack guardian of the Northern clans. You are family to the Dravic people. Our strength is yours. Our honor is yours. Our home is yours. The 3 cubs let out howls of joy, the sound filling the medical bay. Other Dravic in the corridor took up the cry until the entire ship echoed with the ancient sound of pack bonding. Over the next few days, Hana recovered in the medical bay. The raiders had been captured and were facing trial for their crimes. The station was being repaired. And the story of what happened spread throughout the galaxy. A human, small, and seemingly weak, had defended 3 Dravic cubs against overwhelming odds. She had used intelligence, tactics, and sheer determination to overcome enemies much more powerful than herself. It was a reminder to every species that strength came in many forms. Representatives from dozens of alien governments sent messages to Hana. Some offered her jobs. Some wanted to study her. Some just wanted to meet the human who had become a pack guardian. But the visits Hana treasured most were from the cubs. They came to see her every day, bringing her food from their ship, telling her stories about their homeworld, teaching her words in their language. They had arrived on the station as strangers. Now they were family. On the 5th day, Park visited. He sat beside her bed and shook his head in amazement. You know, when I assigned you to the cubs, I thought it would be a simple cultural exchange, some teaching, some learning, nothing too exciting. Hana laughed. Sorry to disappoint. Disappoint? Day smiled. You exceeded every expectation. The Xenobiology Corps is talking about creating a new program based on what you did. Cross-species pack bonding or something like that. You've changed how we think about working with alien species. I just did what felt right, Hana said. When they were in danger, I couldn't leave them. They were my responsibility. It was more than responsibility, Day said. You genuinely cared about them. And they felt that. That's why they followed you. That's why they trusted you. You didn't just teach them tactics. You showed them what it means to be part of a pack. Later that evening, as Hana was finally cleared to leave medical, the Cubs were waiting outside. They had news. The station is repaired enough for us to return, Throck said. Our exchange program will continue, and Father has agreed that you should remain our liaison. If you want to, Venna added quickly. We understand if you want a quieter assignment after everything that happened. Hana looked at the three young Dravik. She thought about everything they had been through together. The fear, the fighting, the trust they had built. Of course I want to continue, she said. We're packed now. That doesn't change. The Cubs' expressions lit up with joy, and they carefully pulled Hana into a group hug, mindful of her healing injuries. As they walked together back toward the station, Hana smiled. She had come to Frontier 9 to study aliens. Instead, she had found something much more valuable. She had found family. 3 months had passed since the raid on Station Frontier 9. The repairs were complete, and life had returned to normal, but everything had changed, especially for Hana and the three Cubs. The story of their fight had spread across the galaxy faster than any news transmission. Humans were no longer seen as just the small, weak species from Earth. Other aliens had started to pay attention. They wanted to understand what made humans different, what made them dangerous despite their size. Hana stood in the training room, watching Throck, Venna, and Krell practice the moves she had taught them. They moved differently now, more efficiently. They no longer relied just on their size and strength. They thought about angles, timing, coordination. They had learned the human way of fighting. Good, Hana called out. Venna, remember to stay low. Use the environment. Throck, watch your left side. Krell, excellent positioning. The Cubs had grown in the past 3 months, not just physically but mentally. They carried themselves with more confidence. They asked better questions. They understood that true strength came from the mind as much as the body. A chime sounded at the door. Hana turned to see Commander Park entering with several guests. She recognized them from her briefings. Ambassador Taral of the Talarian Council, a blue-skinned being known for incredible intelligence. General Vrix of the Cortex Collective, floating in his containment sphere. And High Scholar Mora, a female Dravik who Hana knew was Venna's mother. Dr. Kim, Commander Park said formally. These representatives have requested to observe your training methods. Hana nodded respectfully to the visitors. You're welcome to watch, though I should warn you that we're still developing the curriculum. That's precisely why we're here, Ambassador Taral said. His voice was musical, each word carefully chosen. The incident 3 months ago has raised important questions about human-alien cooperation. We wish to understand your methods. The Cubs had stopped training and were standing at attention. High Scholar Mora walked over to her daughter, examining her carefully. You've changed, Venna. You move differently. Think differently. Hana taught me, Venna said proudly. She taught all of us. Show us, General Vrix requested. The Cortex's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, a side effect of their unique biology. Hana looked at the Cubs. They nodded, ready. All right, Scenario 7, multiple opponents in a confined space. She activated the training room's holographic system. Projected enemies appeared around them, 10 hostile figures with various weapons. The Cubs immediately fell into the formation Hana had taught them. Throck took the front position. Venna moved to the left flank. Krell covered the right. They moved as one unit, each protecting the others. The holographic enemies attacked. The cubs responded perfectly. They didn't try to overpower every opponent. Instead, they controlled the space, used the environment, struck at weak points. Within 2 minutes, all 10 holographic enemies were defeated. The cubs hadn't taken a single hit. The visiting representatives looked impressed. High Scholar Mora seemed particularly amazed. Remarkable. This is not how we train our warriors. We focus on individual combat, on personal strength and honor. Humans fight differently, Hana explained. We evolved as pack hunters. We learned to work together to bring down prey much larger and stronger than ourselves. It's in our nature to cooperate, to coordinate, to use tactics instead of just force. Ambassador Terral tilted his head thoughtfully. And you've taught the Dravic cubs this human approach. Have you considered teaching others? Others? Hana asked. The Talarian Council would be interested in sending students, Terral said. We are not a warlike people, but we face threats from pirates and raiders just like the Dravic do. Your methods could help us protect ourselves without resorting to violence. General Vrix added, the Cortex Collective also sees value in this training. We have powerful minds but weak bodies. Learning to maximize our physical capabilities through intelligent tactics would benefit our people greatly. Hana was surprised. She had expected some interest in her methods, but not from so many different species. I would need to adapt the training for each species. Different bodies, different capabilities. It would take time. We have time, High Scholar Mora said, and the Dravic clans will support this effort. You saved our children. You showed us new ways of thinking. That is worth any investment. Over the next few weeks, the training program expanded. Students from multiple species began arriving at Station Frontier 9. Hana found herself teaching not just combat tactics, but something deeper. She was teaching the human philosophy of never giving up, of protecting your pack, of finding creative solutions when brute force wouldn't work. A young Talarian named Rena struggled with the physical aspects of training. Her species was built for intelligence, not combat. After a particularly difficult session, she sat in the corner, frustrated and ready to quit. Hana sat down beside her. What's wrong? I'm not strong like the Dravic, Rena said. I'm not fast like the Cortex. I can't do this. You're thinking about it wrong, Hana said gently. You don't need to match their strengths. You need to find your own strengths. What are Talarians good at? Thinking, planning, analyzing patterns. Exactly. So in a fight, you don't try to overpower your enemy. You outthink them. You predict their moves. You set traps. You use your intelligence as a weapon. Hana pulled out a tactical puzzle. Solve this. 10 enemies in a corridor. You have only a smoke grenade and a communicator. How do you win? Rena studied the puzzle for several minutes. Then her eyes lit up. I don't fight them directly. I use the smoke grenade to hide. Then I use the communicator to broadcast sounds from different locations. They'll think there are multiple opponents. They'll split up to search. Then they're vulnerable to ambush one at a time. Hana smiled. See? You're already thinking like a human. We don't win because we're strong. We win because we refuse to give up and we use every advantage we can find. The training continued. The students learned not just from Hana, but from each other. The Dravic cubs taught strength and direct combat. The Talarians taught strategy and planning. The Cortex taught spatial awareness and multitasking. Each species brought their own strengths to the pack. One evening, Hana sat in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. She heard heavy footsteps behind her and turned to see war leader Grath approaching. The massive Dravic warrior had visited the station several times to check on his son's progress. May I join you? Grath asked. Of course. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Grath spoke. I have been watching the training, seeing how different species learn to work together. It reminds me of something my grandfather once said. What was that? He said that the strongest pack is not the one with the biggest warriors. It is the one where every member knows their role and trusts their packmates completely. Grath looked at Hana. You have built such a pack here. Species that have never worked together before are now training side by side, fighting as one unit. It's not easy, Hana admitted. There are challenges, cultural differences, communication problems, different ways of thinking. But when it works, it's beautiful. You know, Grath said thoughtfully. When humanity first joined the galactic community, many species dismissed you. They saw your small size, your lack of natural weapons, your short lifespans. They thought you were weak. And now? Now we understand. Humans are not weak. You are different. You have something that many species lack. You have determination. You refuse to accept defeat. You protect your pack with everything you have. And perhaps most importantly, you help others become stronger. Hana felt warmth in her chest at his words. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. I have a proposal, Grath said. The Dravik clans wish to establish a permanent training facility, a place where young warriors from all species can learn human tactics and philosophy. We would like you to lead it. Hana stared at him in surprise. That's a huge responsibility. You are already doing it, Grath pointed out. We would simply make it official, provide resources, support, recognition. You would have full authority over the curriculum and teaching methods. Hana thought about it. She had come to Frontier 9 to study aliens, to learn about them as a xenobiologist. But she had discovered something more valuable. She had learned that despite all the differences between species, there were universal truths, the desire to protect loved ones, the courage to face danger, the strength that came from working together. I accept, she said, but on one condition. The facility must be open to all species. No discrimination, no hierarchy. Everyone trains as equals. Grath smiled, showing his impressive teeth. Agreed. I would expect nothing less from a pack guardian. 3 months later, the official opening ceremony took place. The new facility, called the Unity Training Center, was built on a neutral space station in a central location. Representatives from over 20 species attended the ceremony. Hana stood on the stage looking out at the crowd. She saw Throck, Venna, and Krell in the front row, now certified as assistant instructors. She saw Rena, the Talarian student who had struggled at first, but was now one of the best tactical thinkers in the program. She saw students from species she had never even met before, all eager to learn. Commander Park introduced her. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests from all species, I present to you Dr. Hana Kim, Pack Guardian of the Northern Clans and Director of the Unity Training Center. Hana stepped up to the podium. She had prepared a long speech, but looking at all these faces, she decided to speak from the heart instead. 3 months ago, I was trapped in a room with 3 Dravik cubs, facing enemies who wanted to harm them. The cubs looked at me and said, "But you're so tiny. How can you protect us?" I told them to stay behind me, and together we fought our way to safety. She paused, looking at Throck, Venna, and Krell. They smiled back at her. What I learned that day is that size doesn't matter. Strength comes in many forms. Intelligence is a weapon. Determination is armor. And the strongest force in the universe is a pack that trusts each other completely. She gestured to the diverse crowd. Look around this room. We come from different worlds, different biologies, different cultures. Some of us are big, some are small, some are strong, some are smart. But we all have one thing in common. We all have hearts. We all care about protecting those we love. We all want to make the universe a safer place. Here at the Unity Training Center, we will learn from each other. Dravik will teach strength. Talarians will teach strategy. Cortex will teach awareness. Humans will teach determination. And together, We will become stronger than any of us could be alone." The crowd erupted in applause. Different species showed approval in different ways. The Dravik roared. The Talarians chimed musical notes. The Cortex pulsed with light. But the message was the same: unity, cooperation, pack. After the ceremony, as the guests mingled, a young human approached Hana. He was maybe 20 years old, nervous and excited. "Dr. Kim, I'm Tae Choi from Earth. I just want to say thank you. You've made humanity proud. You've shown the galaxy what we can do." Hana smiled at him. "We've always had these qualities. I just reminded people. And remember, it's not about making humans look good. It's about working together with other species, learning from each other, building something better than what we had before." As the day ended and Hana returned to her quarters, she found the 3 cubs waiting for her. They had grown so much since that first day on the station. They were no longer just students. They were her pack, her family. "We wanted to thank you," Throck said, "for everything, for saving us, for teaching us, for showing us that there's more to strength than just muscles and claws." "You taught us something else too," Venna added. "You taught us that the size of your heart matters more than the size of your body." Krell nodded. "When we first met you, we thought you were weak because you were small. But you're the strongest person we know, not because of your muscles, but because of your spirit, your refusal to give up. Your determination to protect your pack no matter what." Hana felt tears in her eyes. "You 3 have taught me just as much. You showed me that despite all our differences, we're not that different after all. We all want the same things: safety, family, purpose, a chance to make a difference." They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there were threats they would have to face. Pirates, raiders, dangers they couldn't even imagine yet. But Hana wasn't worried. She had her pack. They had each other. And humans had shown the galaxy something important. They had shown that you didn't need to be the biggest or the strongest to make a difference. You just needed heart. You needed determination. You needed the willingness to stand up and say, "Stay behind me," when your pack was in danger. Because in the end, that's what really mattered. Not size, not strength, not even intelligence. What mattered was having the courage to protect those you cared about. What mattered was never giving up, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. What mattered was heart. And humans, for all their physical weaknesses, had the biggest hearts in the galaxy. Hana smiled as she watched the stars. The universe was a big place, full of wonders and dangers, but she was ready for whatever came next. She had her pack, she had her purpose, and she had learned that even the smallest person could make the biggest difference. All you had to do was refuse to give up. All you had to do was stand up and say, "Stay behind me," and mean it.